episode 3 of Some Like It Real. I'm Bryan,
And I'm Veronica.
and we're two cinephiles who love to talk movies.
We have weekly discussions with the newest films, creating lists and drafts, and keeping you updated on the latest movie headlines and awards races.
And on today's episode, we are going to be doing our first review of not only the year, but of the show with 28 years later, The Bone Temple, directed by Nia DaCosta.
But before doing that, let's play some catch up. So, Brian, how was your week? Did you watch anything interesting? How's it been going?
So last week, I was still recovering from a very severe case of the flu, supposedly, and I'm happy to report that I'm about 98% recovered. There's
Nice.
still a tiny bit of a cough, but I'll take it over a stuffy nose, a scratchy throat, what have you. In terms of what I've watched, let's see. I watched The Rip on Netflix, directed by Joe Carnahan, starring Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, in what feels like their 1000th collaboration together. And it's fine. It's, very run of the mill thriller cop movie, and Ben Affleck has really ugly tattoos, but you know what? I'm all for it. Also, Tiana Taylor and Steven Yeun are in it, and I love them both. Let's see. I watched Grave of the Fireflies for the first time, which has been on my watch list for so long, and I was never able to find it anywhere. And I watched it, and this is a perfect case of I loved the film. I thought it was fantastic, but I am never, ever, ever watching it again because, oh my God, what a traumatizing watch to say the least. I rewatched Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, which is one of my all-time favorite films. It's in my Letterboxd 4. Go check that out. Follow me on Letterboxd at Brian Seffield. Thank you very much. I rewatched The Muppets from 2011, which is a go-to comfort watch for me. I love this film. I love that Jason Segel has this huge love for those puppets and everything, and it's really sad that Disney never knows what to do with the Muppets. It just disgusts me, like, every single time. Like, every once in a while they'll be like, oh, we're gonna prioritize the Muppets, but then they just brush them off like they're nothing, and it makes me sad. But that's a great film. And I also watched People We Meet on Vacation. I might have talked about this last week. I don't remember. To be honest, I was sick, so I don't really remember half the stuff that was
It's all
discussed
blending
last
together.
week. But it's fine. It's a cute little romance movie that feels akin to When Harry Met Sally, and Tom Blythe and Emily Bader are both so gorgeous and have wonderful chemistry, and I hope they make more movies together. But that was my week. Veronica, how was your week? You celebrated a birthday this past week. Did you get a chance to watch anything, or were you just focused on the birthday of it all?
Thank you. Turned 30 officially. So, yeah, I had a couple celebrations. I was also, like you, in the mix of recovering from bronchitis that I had earlier the week before, and it's still hit or miss, but we're doing our best out here. But yeah, I got to celebrate with friends and family, and I did that by making my family on my birthday sit down and watch broadcast news, because I was like, you know what, it's my birthday. I think I'm going to do this every year now. Like, they can't say no. I'm just going to pick a movie that I love and that I think everyone else would enjoy. And that went over pretty well, I think. I think everyone was fairly happy with it. Let's see. Then I also went to the theater. I saw caught up with All That's Left of You, which is an international film. I believe it's Jordan's submission, I want to say, for the Oscars. It's as we have been talking about, it's a competitive year for international, so I don't know that it's gonna make it onto any major lists or anything. But I absolutely love this movie. It's all I knew going into it was that it followed a Palestinian family, and so that's something I'm very interested in. I care about a lot, and so I was expecting it to be harrowing or emotional, and it was that, but it's also like this gorgeous, lovely portrait of a family, and all of the interdynamics that happen, but in the backdrop of living through colonization and oppression. And I just thought it was really well done. There are time jumps that I think are handled brilliantly. Yeah, I think definitely seek that movie out if you can. It's playing in some theaters now, I think. Then I caught up with Is This Thing On, which I thought was good, not great. Which coming from me, who's I love that kind of movie. An adult relationship drama. I love everyone involved. I'm a big fan of Will Arnett, Laura Dern. I like Bradley Cooper in front of and behind the camera so far with his other two outings. So I think that if you're maybe not into any of those elements, this might not work for you. But yeah, I thought it was a fairly good watch. Then let's see, I watched, rewatched Sorry Baby because Julia Roberts told me to at the Golden Globes. No, I had been meaning to for a while. I kind of like I saw it over the summer, loved it then, but it was almost like I was kind of itching to rewatch it. It's such a, like, wintry movie, and I wanted
Mhm.
to, like it's
Yeah.
just a good, like it's a fitting sort of vibe for, like, this time of the year, I don't know, so, yeah, really enjoyed that rewatch. I found even more to love in it, this time around. Yeah, I think that concludes for me other than what we're gonna be talking about later.
Yes, we will be talking about a particular movie later on, but we have a other batch of news to go through.
Yep.
We had a major trailer drop, if you consider it major. Now, this isn't film. We're primarily a film podcast, but Veronica, and I, we also love television. And we love to stay up to date with what's popular on television. And this is popular for maybe not the right reasons. We
Popular, notorious, you know.
Yes. We finally, in air quotes, got the trailer for the long awaited third season of Euphoria. You know, this show has gone through such a roller coaster. First of all, I cannot believe that it's been 7 years since it premiered. I literally remember the first time
Wow,
I
yeah.
heard that this show was coming out. I remember so vividly that Big Little Lies season 2 had its finale, and then following that was the premiere of Euphoria. And the only thing I knew about this show going into it was that Zendaya was in it. It was like her first major adult role following her stint with Disney, and A24 was producing it. And I think season 1 is great. I still stand by season 1 being great. Season 2, it has its moments, but ultimately it's a huge downgrade from season 1. And this season, I have no idea what direction they're going in. I watched the trailer and I gotta be honest, like, is it going to be a good season of TV? Probably not. Am I gonna watch it? Honestly, I would be lying to myself if I said I wasn't gonna watch it. I'm very intrigued to see where this goes. I mean, the filmmaking of it looks very impressive, and I love a lot of the actors in that ensemble, and I love the careers that they blossom into outside of this show, especially Jacob Elordi. He's done so much incredible work after season 2 came out back in 2022. And now he might get an Oscar nomination, possibly might win an Oscar, which is insane to even fathom. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's probably going to suck, but I'm going to watch it out of sheer curiosity. Did you get around to watching the trailer for Euphoria season 3?
Yeah, I saw it, and yeah, I generally feel the same as you, where the first season I didn't watch the first season live, I don't think. I think I kinda caught up with it after some of the buzz and stuff, and then, yeah, season 2 was such a, like, disconnect because, like you said, it's like the filmmaking is usually, like, pretty top notch, like, it's I think they've, developed certain cameras to work on it, and
Mhm.
it's Sam Levinson, he's got a strong visual style, and so it's like even when you can enjoy scenes isolated or, individual characters maybe, but it was just overall a mess, like, the story, it was a bit of, like, a hate watch for me, I think. I was just kind of like watching a train wreck, you just kinda had to see what was
Mhm.
gonna happen next, and so I think I'm kinda feeling that same way. The new trailer, it's definitely like they're out of high school now, it's, like, a few years later. I think they're going with a appropriate time jump, and it just seemed a lot more like felt like just a crime show sort of, a lot of the stuff that's going on with Rue and things like that, so I don't know, it seems like it's gonna be a bit of a different vibe, out of that weird, like, heightened version
Mhm.
of high school, so, yeah, I will watch. I don't know if I'll enjoy I like almost every actor on it pretty much. It's, such a who's who of cool new actors and everything, so I'm excited to see what they do. I'm excited for it to, probably look pretty cool, but not really gonna be super invested beyond that probably.
Yeah, I think the best moments of this season will probably be whenever Coleman Domingo's on screen, and I'm just here to say that
Sure.
right now. I mean, I feel like he didn't get a lot of time in season 2, which really disappointed me. But I listen, he'll elevate whatever material he's given. He will probably be the best thing about the season whenever he's on it. If he's on it a lot, or if he's on just like one episode, I still think the best piece of Euphoria was that special episode they did when it was just him and Rue talking in that
Right,
diner,
yeah.
the COVID bottle special that they made. It's so amazing that you watch that on its own. Like, you could watch that as a separate thing and be like, "This is incredible." And then you watch season 2 of Euphoria and you're like, "What the hell did we get ourselves
Yeah.
into?" Sam Levinson he's a hack, but unfortunately, I'm still gonna watch the season. I would be shocked if
Yeah.
they go with more seasons after this because it's like, when are we gonna get season 4? 4 years from now? Like, there's just no way. There's no
I just,
way.
release them, let them all go do all of their other projects and everything. I'm sure that's why it took so long to get this one off the ground because everyone is busy, so
I
let
know
them move on.
they've said that there's so many reasons. One was the strikes, one was Angus Cloud's death, the other being that all these actors have done a multitude of different projects and everything. And it was supposed to start at a certain point early, I think in 2024, and then it got pushed until 2025. And I was like, there's no way that this is coming out until I see a frame of this. And
Right.
now it's actually coming, and it's coming out in April. And yeah, I'm really curious of how this is gonna fare. I'm genuinely curious. Will Zendaya win a third Emmy for it? I would be shocked. I would actually be really shocked if that's the case.
Exactly. Well, another film that we don't have a trailer yet for, but there was an announcement about its release date. We're getting a new J.J. Abrams movie this year. We would have covered it in our last episode, but it hadn't really. We weren't sure if it was going to be a title from this year yet. So, yeah, how are you feeling about J.J. Abrams' new movie?
I'm very, very excited for this. It's called The Great Beyond. There's not many details revealed about it, but we know who's in the film. Glenn Powell will be headlining the film alongside Jenna Ortega, Emma Mackey, Mary Weaver, Sophie Okonodo, and Samuel L. Jackson. J.J. Abrams hasn't directed a film since 2019 with The Rise of Skywalker, which I think is the only bad film that he's directed. And I can't entirely blame him for how that film turned out. I think what he did with The Force Awakens is incredible. I still think The Force Awakens is like top 3 Star Wars films. And I thought that was a really great start to a trilogy that ultimately did not meet that potential that it was set up for. But then he's also directed the 2 Star Trek films, which kind of made me a Star Trek fan. I didn't care about Star Trek at all until I watched that first film that he made. And I mean, I'm not like a hardcore fan, but I appreciate Star Trek more now because of those 2 films. Super 8, I think, is criminally underrated, and Mission Impossible 3 is an underrated entry in that filmography where it has who I think is the best villain in the entire franchise in Philip Seymour Hoffman, and I can't believe that that movie is 20 years old. And of course, all of his TV work, JJ's TV work. Lost is one of my favorite shows of all time. So whenever JJ has his name attached to someone, I'm there right away. But I'm very excited that he's finally directing a film again. I cannot wait to see this. I think it's going to be a pretty big deal that we're getting a Spielberg film, a Nolan film, and all these other filmmakers, and then we're getting the J.J. Abrams film at the end of the year. So I'm very excited. What about you? Are you looking forward to J.J. Abrams' newest outing?
I am, yeah. I definitely, yeah, similar to you. Um, the Star Trek movies, like the reboot that he directed the first 2 entries of. I love those movies. It's Star Trek was kind of around in my family. My dad's a big fan and used to watch some of the original series. But that was a real like kickstart to the series, and got a lot of other people interested in it. I love that cast. I think that is like a perfectly assembled cast, and yeah,
Oh,
it's
it's a
like
perfect ensemble.
yeah. And, yeah, I love how he's got a real sensibility for that, and I think it translated well to Star Wars for the one movie, not the other one. But, I mean, that was also I don't know if how much that was his fault, it's like, it seemed like there were a lot of, conflicting interests and everything. I don't know that anyone was entirely happy with how it turned out, but, that's history, so, yeah, I like his directorial style. I think that sometimes there are, issues with writing, and, I think he famously has a problem with endings, like, he can start off a movie or show with, something really intriguing, introduce a bunch of great characters, and then sometimes the answers are a little less satisfying. So we'll see. This seems to be a genre movie in some way. So yeah, I am ready for the lens flares to return. Bring it on.
I'm so excited. When the first lens flare comes up, it'll feel like reinvigoration, and I cannot wait to see it.
It'll be like a cameo. Everyone in the theater is going to start cheering.
Oh, and you know what? If people cheer at that, I'm totally fine with that. I'll take that over a Marvel actor coming out on screen in a heartbeat.
Right.
In a heartbeat. Um, Veronica, we're just time of recording. We're 5 days away from the Oscar nominations coming out.
Wow.
We just had the Golden Globes this past weekend,
Hmm.
and I thought it would be kind of fun to kind of quickly go through like possible final Oscar nomination predictions just to see where we stand. We're going to talk about the Oscar nominations on the next episode of the pod and everything,
Right.
but I'm very excited that we're finally getting to this point, but I'm also super terrified. I just know that they're going to pull some crazy shenanigans and I'm not going to be okay.
There's usually some sort of surprise on nomination morning, whether good or bad or however you feel about it. But so yeah, it's anyone who's feeling like, oh yeah, I'm pretty secure in what I'm predicting. Usually there's going to be something to shock everybody. So we'll have to wait and see what that is. But
Yeah.
yeah, how did you like the Golden Globes? Were there any moments you want to highlight or races that you think were a little bit shaken up?
Well, I'll just say this with the Golden Globes. Whoever was the DJ, very questionable music choices to say the least. Very bizarre music choices. In terms of the winners, though, honestly, there weren't a ton of surprises. It pretty much went the way that I was expecting. Um, the only thing with me that I guess surprised me was that I thought Amy Madigan was going to win supporting actress, and then it ended up going to Tiana Taylor, deservedly so. I think that she is very deserving of the award. But I was like, oh, maybe they'll go for Amy Madigan and everything, but they ended up going for the person that's in the supposed Best Picture frontrunner. One Battle did very well. Golden Globes night it won 4 awards: picture, director, screenplay, and then supporting actress. And I thought Sinners was gonna win drama. There was a for most of the time I was like, oh, Hamnet is gonna take this. But then the last minute I'm like, but there's this surge for Sinners right now, so I'm kind of hoping it's that. But Hamnet winning was fine by me too. I was a big fan of Hamnet, so I wasn't offended with that choice at all. But honestly, it was pretty much like expected. I guess also screenplay, I was like, oh, maybe this will go to an international title, but it ended up going to one battle after another. And then foreign language film or non-English language film as they call it. I was predicting it was just an accident, but it ended up going to The Secret Agent, which also took home Best Actor Drama for Wagner Moura. So, yeah, I guess there weren't a ton of surprises. I'm interested to see how it's going to correlate with the Oscars in a couple of months. But yeah, how did you feel overall about the Golden Globes?
Yeah, I thought it was a fairly good show. Yeah, definitely some highlights, just moments that I enjoyed was Wanda Sykes accepting for Ricky Gervais and thanking God in the trans community. Wonderful. She's a gem. I enjoyed the Nikki Glazer's AMC Theaters podcast bit. I thought that was really fun spoofing the Nicole Kidman ad. And then my favorite win and probably the favorite speech was Rose Byrne winning and thanking her husband who was couldn't be there because he was at a reptile expo in New Jersey. And my sister asked me about 2 weeks ago if I wanted to go to a reptile expo, and I was like, we were like, no, we were busy that day or whatever. I could have been there with Bobby Cannavale in the flesh. So, that was fun. But no, Rose Byrne was lovely, and I think that was a great win and a great speech. Yeah, some things that I didn't enjoy so much. They announced the winner for score off screen.
Uh-huh.
So
Yep.
Ludwig Göransson won for Sinners, and that's just like it's they had time for the podcast award and all of these bits and stuff, but it's like that's a cool win. It's a notable person and everything, and I hate when they sort of shunt things off so that they're
Yeah.
like second class awards. But they also played Kleber Mendoza Filho off when he went up there for Secret Agent. Also not cool. We don't need to save time that badly. Let people
Yeah,
have
it's
their
like
moment.
the one award that they tried to get them off the stage for is
Yeah.
that, which is questionable. And then The weird thing with that whole thing was that, like, it's one thing to cut off somebody and then just move on to the next award, but they cut him off, and then this random 5-second, like, UFC thing happened, and then it
Yeah.
just moved on to the next award, and I'm like, "What?"
So awkward, yeah, and it's basically like an advertisement because I guess CBS owns UFC now, but it was like, who cares? Like, it's not well, it didn't
Save it
feel
for the
great.
commercials, don't actually do
Yeah.
it on the actual show. It was the I bet everyone in that theater was like, "What? Huh?
Like, yeah,
Huh?"
okay. Yeah, so, oh, also, that Seth Rogen didn't thank Sal Saperstein when he got up there for the
Oh, yeah, what
studio.
the
I
hell?
mean, that was just a gimme, like
He couldn't just say for 5 seconds, "Thank you, Sal Saperstein."
yeah.
He couldn't
Yeah,
do
he
that for 5
referenced,
seconds?
like, being at the Globes, which was on, the studio this year and everything, so, but overall, yeah, I don't think that there were major surprises. I think that, as you're discussing, I think it's kind of interesting now, like, is Hamnet or Sinners kind of in 2nd place behind One Battle, for Best Picture and for, like, some other, awards in contention.
Mhm.
I think One Battle is pretty safely ahead in a lot of the major categories, but yeah, it's interesting to look at because Sinners won the Box Office Achievement Award, which is a fairly new award. I believe they introduced that in for the 2023 season.
Yeah.
And Barbie won it that year, and it seemed like it's sort of almost a consolation prize. Like, we love your movie, but we're not going to give it any of the big prizes. And it's sort of maybe if they didn't have that, Sinners would have just won Best Drama.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
in this case, they felt a little freed up to, spread the love to Hamnet. So, as I agree with you, like, I'm not mad about any of it. I just think it's interesting in terms of where it stands in the race.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, international is like really interesting right now. I think at the like beginning of the season, during festivals, everything was about sentimental value. That was like the big name. Then I think it was just an accident really gained steam throughout the fall, and it sort of seemed like that was the favorite. And now the secret agent is picking up wins all over the place. So I really feel like we're in a 3 film race. We're not predicting winners yet for the Oscars. Obviously, we're just worrying about the nominations right now. But I'm curious, like, what do you think for like Best Picture? How many international films do you think are getting in there?
I feel like there's gonna be I'm confident in Chew getting in. I'm confident that Sentimental Value and It Was Just an Accident are getting in, but I'm starting to believe that Secret Agent could make its way in there as well. I was hoping that it would maybe be No Other Choice if there was going to be a third international title that made the Best Picture lineup, but I feel like that movie's losing a bit of steam, and
Hmm.
Secret Agent is starting to gain a lot more of it. And I do think that its wins at the Globes are definitely helping out, but then it's also been doing so well with critics groups and everything. Like Wagner Mora has won a ton of Best Actor prizes at critics groups, and this has won a ton of prizes at critics groups. So I just think that the love for Secret Agent, especially in this industry, is really increasing as the days go by. So I think it's safe to say that we're gonna get 3 international titles in Best Picture, all distributed by Neon. And yeah, I mean, I do think Sentimental and It Was Just an Accident are safe, but
Yeah.
Secret Agent is like I'm like in the 80-20 range. Like I'm 80% confident that's gonna get into picture, then 20% unsure.
Yeah, I'm predicting all 3 for right now, and the international lineup, that it could be all 5 Neon films. It's almost like I almost kind of wanna predict that even if there is gonna be a surprise in there, because you don't wanna, have one miss out, but,
Yeah.
yeah, Neon sort of bought up everything that it could, that was gonna be
As it always
con
does.
yeah, which it's is it gaming the system a little bit? Yeah, probably, but at least they're a competent studio that markets these films pretty well. It gets it distributed so that a lot of
Mhm.
people can have eyes on them. So,
Yeah.
I'm not mad about it.
Near am I. I mean, they do a great job and they clearly love cinema and they love the theatrical experience and they love giving all these filmmakers a chance to showcase their voices, even when it's films that they pick up after they had been made. So I think it's safe to say that Neon is going to do exceptionally well this season. But I mean, the big champion will be Warner Brothers, with
Hmm.
one battle after another, of course, and then Sinners. So we'll kind of quickly just go through a few categories before we go into our main topic, I predict.
Yep.
So, best adapted screenplay, this is what I have right now. I think One Battle After Another is winning. There's no chance of it losing. If it does lose, Hamnet is going to be the film that takes that prize from it. And then following that, I have Frankenstein, Begonia, and Train Dreams.
I have the same 5, yeah.
Sweet.
Mhm.
What do you think could sneak in possibly? Like if there's a film on this list that's vulnerable, I would say Train Dreams might be the one that could miss, and then maybe No Other Choice sneaks in, but I'm starting to kind of lose hope in that making into screenplay.
I probably would have No Other Choice as my 6th pick, but yeah, as you said, it's kind of lost steam in this, like, crowded field and everything, so I don't know that it's gonna contend too much outside of international.
Yeah.
Then what about original screenplay? Let me find mine. So I have Sinners winning, and then Sentimental Value, Marty Supreme, It Was Just an Accident, and The Secret Agent.
I have the same 4, but I'm
Mhm.
still holding out hope for Sorry Baby. I think the Julia Roberts thing might have. I, I would like to hope that people listened to Oscar winner Julia Roberts and was like, okay, we're gonna watch Sorry Baby if we haven't already, and we're gonna try to get Ava Victor that nomination. If Sorry Baby gets nominated for screenplay, that would be my favorite nomination of the entire lineup. I think, like in terms of the above the line, I don't know what miraculous thing they're gonna pull off in the below the line, but
Mhm.
I have Sorry Baby at 5 right now, but I could see it missing for Secret Agent.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I think it's on the bubble, and it's there tends to be like one or two films that just get like a one-off nomination. So hopefully that's gonna be one. But yeah, we'll have to see.
We'll
It's
have
the
to
Julia
see.
Roberts push.
Exactly. Speaking of a category that we'll have to see is supporting actress. This is a big question mark. In terms of the 4 acting categories, nobody knows what's happening with this. Like this is probably the category that people are the least confident in. So right now for supporting actress, I have Teyana Taylor, One Battle After Another, Amy Madigan, Weapons. I have Inga Ibzadar Lillis for Sentimental Value, who is currently my this is my personal supporting actress winner. Like if I was in charge of the Oscars, this would be who I would pick.
Mhm.
And then I have Elle Fanning for Sentimental Value, and then I have Wumi Masaku for Sinners. And on the bubble is the girl on the bubble, Ariana Grande for Wicked for Good.
I'm so conflicted here. I definitely think Tiana, Amy Madigan, and probably Inga are pretty safely in there. I know that there's always some discrepancies, but yeah, as I said, I'm always like there's always going to be some nomination that kind of like surprises everybody. So I don't know. I think that I sort of get the feeling that Elle Fanning might miss, just with two nominations from the same movie. So I think as of now, and Ariana is also borderline. I know Wicked hasn't been all that strong, so I think I would go with Wunmi Masaka, and I kind of want to like pick a little bit out there pick. I'm thinking maybe like Odessa Zion for Marty Supreme, just
She's
because
number 7 for me right now.
yeah. I just feel like there's gonna be a curveball in there somewhere, and, like, I think this might be the one that I'm gonna go for, just as in terms of my predictions, because, yeah, I think that movie has gained a lot of steam. I think it's pretty popular. She was nominated for the ACTOR Awards, not the SAG Awards anymore, and, yeah, I just feel like there's gotta be a surprise somewhere, and I think the other categories are a little more, it wouldn't be a shock for, like, the 4th or 5th slot to change up, so
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, that's where I'm at with it right now.
Yeah, I could see her making it in. I think if she does get in, then I think that that means that they're really passionate about Mari Supreme. Like
Right.
we have it in screenplay. I I think he's going to get in for director. Josh Safdie, I think he's getting in
Mhm.
for director, and I think that that is going to be what solidifies that nomination. If Odessa makes it into supporting actress, then I will be like, oh yeah, Josh Safdie absolutely has to be making director.
Right. Yeah, if the movie's strong overall.
Yeah.
And what about, lead actor?
Did we do
What's
supporting
that?
actor?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right, yeah, we went right from screenplay to supporting. Thinking we
Uh,
had it already.
Supporting actor number one, my Kane Stellan Skarsgård. I think that the Globe helped him out big time.
Mhm.
I do think that even without the actor nomination, I do think that he will still win. But I know we're not predicting winners, but I do think he's locked for the nomination. Number two and three, I have the One Battle After Another men, Benicio del Toro and Sean Penn. Number four, Jacob Elordi. And then number five, I guess Paul Mescal, Hamnet, even though I really wanted to be Adam Sandler for Jay Kelly.
Yeah, I think Jay Kelly is pretty much dead.
It is, unfortunately. I think if Jay Kelly snuck into like screenplay, I don't know what order these nominations are gonna be listed at, but like I think supporting actor usually goes first, but there's just a part of me that wants Sandler in, but his time will come eventually. It'll happen hopefully sooner than later. But yeah, Paul Mescal, um, he's number five.
Yeah, it's sort of borderline co-lead performance, so, he has a
Hmm.
lot of material in the movie. Yeah, I have the same 5. I think if I had to pick, like, as of today, who would actually win, and I know that, we're just talking about nominations, but I feel like Benicio might be in the strongest spot as of right now.
I think
But
it's between him and Stellan.
yeah, yeah, so we'll see. Yeah, that category seems fairly settled. Like I said, there could always be a surprise, though.
Yeah, absolutely. What about actress? How are we feeling about actress?
Actress. Let me find my. So I have Jessie Buckley, Rose Byrne, Chase Infinity, Renata Reinsva, and I went with Emma Stone for this last slot. Is a little bit up for grabs, but I think that she's broadly just very popular with the Academy, two-time award winner, and Begonia's been showing up like pretty much places that it was not even thought to be in contention.
Yeah.
It's got a pretty strong showing at a lot of the critics groups and awards bodies. So yeah, I think that that's a pretty safe bet to bet on Emma Stone.
Yeah, there's a surge coming with Emma Stone, and rightfully so. She's pretty fantastic at Begonia. It's up there for the best performances of her career, certainly. I have the same five. I just swapped Chase and Renata. I'm more confident in Renata getting the nom
Hmm.
over Chase Infinity. Even though Chase Infinity is in the Best Picture frontrunner, there's still just a tiny part of me that's like, oh, they're not going to give it to the person for their literal film debut. So I don't know. It would be really disappointing though if she doesn't get nominated because she is the heart and
Yeah.
soul of the movie. And it would be crazy though if she gets all these nominations and then doesn't make it to the Oscars. I think that would be really disappointing. But yeah,
It would,
Jesse
yeah.
Buckley, I think is winning this. I think this is the
Hmm.
easiest acting category to predict too when it comes to the winner. I think that she absolutely is winning. Although, in a perfect world, and I'm sorry to the Hamnet Hive out there. I'm a part of the Hive too. Don't worry. Rose Byrne should be the winner of this category, in my opinion.
I agree. I also I like Hamlet. I like especially Jesse Buckley in it, but I think that that's a bit more of a traditional performance. And Rose Byrne is just so unique. I just can't picture anybody else doing that. And then yeah, for Chase Infinity, I feel pretty strongly about her because it seems like such a parallel to Lily Gladstone in Killers of the Flower Moon, or even it was Michelle Williams in The Fablemans, where it's sort of the movie premiered and people sort of talked about it like, oh, they could go for supporting and be like super competitive and
Yeah.
probably have like the win locked up, and
Hmm.
then they like were a little more ambitious, pushed to go for lead actress, and
Yeah.
the sort of like asserting themselves that way, and saying
Right.
I feel like when that happens, I think that's like they're pretty much locked for the nomination.
Hmm.
The win is probably a little bit out of reach, but
Totally.
I think that Chase has just been so impressive, like in the movie and throughout award season. So I feel like she's got it.
Yeah.
And then, what are your best actor predictions?
Number one, I have Chalamet. I think he's winning. I think it's his award to lose, and then followed by Leonardo DiCaprio, number two. Number three, I have Wagner Mora. I think that he is absolutely getting the nom. Number four, number four and five, it swaps every single day, but I do think that Michael B. Jordan and Ethan Hawke are in those last two spots. I just talked about how disappointed I would be if Chase Infinity misses. I would be extremely disappointed if Michael B. Jordan misses. Like
Yeah.
first, it's his time to get some sort of nomination, and I know that actors playing true characters don't tend to get nominated very often, but Sinners is a top 3 contender of the season, and if anyone deserves the nom, it's him. Like, the work that he did in that movie is arguably the best of his whole career, and it's time for him to get his flowers. And yeah, Ethan Hawke, shockingly never nominated for a Best Actor Oscar, so I'm excited for him to finally get nominated. And then number 6 on the bubble, I have Joel Edgerton, who really should be nominated for Train Dreams. That was my favorite performance of the entire year, and no Best Actor lineup this season feels complete without Joel Edgerton. I mean, I could say the same thing about Amanda Seyfried and Best Actress. I didn't even love The Testament of Anne Lee, but the fact that she's been treated dirty this entire season is really disgusting to me. So,
Yeah.
yeah, Best Actor, how's it looking for you?
I have the same 5. Yeah, in terms of, like, personal ballot, yeah, between those 5 and Joel Edgerton, I'm like, you could any of those could be a winner, and I would be happy with it, honestly. Yeah, I hope that Michael B. Jordan is getting his flowers because, yeah, I think that, Sinners it was just such a huge movie this year. I think that people would, like, be upset if he doesn't, get the proper due, because he really anchors that movie and, his collaboration with Ryan Coogler over so many movies. I think it's definitely due to be awarded. So yeah, he feels maybe most on the bubble just because, you know, Sinners is going to contend so many other places, and so yeah, I'm definitely hoping to see him in there. What about director?
Number 1, Father PTA. Number 2, Ryan Coogler. Number 3, Chloe Zhao. This is tough. 4 and 5. Number 4, I'm gonna go with Joachim Trier, and then 5, I have Jafar Panahi right now. I would be really sad if he doesn't get in. I would be
Mhm.
really sad, but I do think that the person that will take a spot if he doesn't get in is Josh Safdie. Or Guillermo
Yeah,
del Toro. I mean, you can
yeah,
make you like it. I think these are the top 7. I think these are the 7 that
definitely.
are going to get nominated, unless they throw us a curveball and like, oh, Joseph Kosinski for F1, which I don't want to live in a world where F1 gets nominated for Best Picture. Listen,
No, especially
I love a good dad movie, and I was entertained by F1, but I do not want that to be a Best Picture nominee.
especially not over these movies. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
it's a really competitive year. Yes, I have PTA, Ryan Coogler, Chloe Zhao, pretty much locked. And then from there, I feel fairly confident saying Jafar Panahi. I think he's the next closest. And then that last slot, yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna give the edge to Safdie just for now because, like I said, I get the sense that Marty Supreme is well liked and is gonna like overperform. Um, then I would probably say Joachim Trier, and then I just kind of get the sense with Guillermo that he's beloved. Everyone in the Academy likes him, but it seems like the sort of movie that's gonna get tons of below the line nominations,
Hmm.
and the director thing just sort of like they sort of pass it up for something that's a little.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that Joachim is probably also gonna be pretty popular, but yeah, I'm just gonna go with Panahi and Safdie just in this moment.
Totally, totally understandable. And then Best Picture, what do you have for your 10?
All right, so we have One Battle After Another, Hamnet, Sinners, Marty Supreme, Frankenstein, It Was Just an Accident, Sentimental Value, The Secret Agent. I'm going for all 3 international neon movies. Begonia and Train Dreams. I think, like I said, especially those last 2 are possibly on the cusp.
Mhm.
Like I said, I think Begonia has shown to be pretty strong. Train Dreams, I think it's near a Best Actor nomination. I think it's gonna get cinematography, and screenplay. So yeah, I think that's a strong enough showing to get it into Best Picture.
Yeah, same exact 10, different
Yep.
order. I do have the same top 3 as you, or top 4, I should say, as you.
Hmm.
Yeah, One Battle, Sinners, and Hamnet. those are the top three
Yeah.
easily. Amari Supreme would be number four for me. Number five, I have Sentimental Value. Number six, I have It Was Just an Accident. Seven, Frankenstein. Eight, Secret Agent. um, where am I? Nine. Nine, Begonia, and then 10, Train Dreams. Train Dreams getting into picture would be so sick. That would be awesome. It would be so deserving, even though it breaks my heart that George Tim might not get nominated, but we'll have to see what happens on Thursday when the nominations come out. We will be recording our next episode on Thursday night, so pretty much hours after the nominations come out, and we'll give our thoughts on them and then kind of play a fun little game of like, oh, if we had a ballot, who will we nominate and reward? So
Yep.
stay tuned for that next week. And with that, let's get into our main topic
Yeah,
where we're
let's
going to be reviewing 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, directed by Nia DaCosta. So we're going to kick off with some non-spoiler thoughts. We're going to talk a little bit about our history with this franchise, and then we're going to get into the break of it all with spoilers. We're going to put timestamps down below in case you want to skip ahead to us talking about stuff at the end of the show and everything. So let's get right into it. So, Veronica, what is your history with this franchise, and what was your anticipation going into 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple?
Yeah, the original 28 Days Later was like one of my favorite movies. I definitely saw that when I was like pretty young, and it was just sort of like the zombie movie for me. Um, I loved just the sort of focus on character, the way it's well written and it's scary, but it's got that sort of bond with found family, like kind of keeping each other together, and then the horror, sort of the one of the best ones to do the people are the real monsters sort of thing, that comes at the end of that film. So yeah, that one was always like a classic to me. I caught up with the sequel 28 Weeks Later, some years after that, and that one is a lot sort of less sophisticated or ambitious. Like it's just sort of a straightforward zombie movie, and it's enjoyable, but not necessarily one of my favorites. And then we had 28 Years Later come out just last year, and that movie was I had so many like sort of disparate thoughts on it. It's a very sort of like definitely ambitious, disjointed, contemplative movie that I definitely enjoyed some parts more than others, but the parts that I loved, I really loved. Especially with the introduction of Ray Fiennes' character, Dr. Kelson, and the titular Bone Temple, the titular for this movie. So yeah, it was like a bit of a mixed bag, but mostly I was like, wow, that's like a super unconventional, ambitious movie, that I think it really reflects a lot of the sensibility of Danny Boyle and Alex Garland. And so this is sort of in line with that. I think I'm feeling a lot of the same way. Definitely some aspects I loved, some that I think didn't work for me quite as well. But overall, I'm positive on the movie. What about you?
I really like 28 Days Later. I enjoyed it. It's not one of my favorite films from Danny Boyle. Danny Boyle is actually a top tier filmmaker for me. I think he's super underappreciated, despite the fact that he has an Oscar and he's directed many acclaimed and celebrated films. Very eclectic filmography, too, which I really respect about him. 28 Weeks Later, I'm not a fan of really at all. Very forgettable to me. Although I do love Robert Carlyle, who has frequently collaborated with Danny Boyle. So I might need to give that another go. To be honest, I haven't watched it in many many years.
It
And
does
then
have a great cast.
yeah, very good. Rose Byrne, fittingly enough,
Hmm.
who we just brought up and
Yep.
everything. 28 Years Later was, in my opinion, like almost like up there for one of the best films of last year for me. Um, what really surprised me so much about that movie was that I'm a big coming of age fan. I had no idea that that was a coming of age film with Disguise. I had no idea. I thought it was just going to be your run of the mill zombie apocalypse film, like this legacy sequel that comes out many, many years after the first film that kicked off the series and everything. And it ended up being a very deep film, very terrifying, also quiet at times. I was really surprised, and I rewatched it right before walking into the Bone Temple, and I still stand by that movie being so good. I went into this movie not watching a single trailer. I went into it completely cold. I mean, I was well aware, obviously, of the plot of it all and who was in it and what have you, but I wasn't sure what to expect, mainly because Danny Boyle wasn't directing this. This time, Nia DaCosta has taken the helm. And I will admit that I haven't seen everything from her. She hasn't done a lot of movies, but she, similar to Danny Boyle, has an incredibly eclectic filmography, doing something like Little Monsters, and then she did the Candyman reboot, and then she did the Marvels for the MCU with this giant budget, and then of course she just did Hedda, which didn't even come out. Only 3 months ago that movie came out, which is insane that she did that, and now she's doing this. And right off the bat, I have to say that this is my favorite thing that she's ever directed. I really liked this when I walked out of the theater, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since. And honestly, it's really sitting well for me. I thought this was a fantastic continuation of the story. My favorite thing about the movie was that Nia DaCosta could have easily tried to copy what Danny Boyle did with the predecessor. And she takes what he did and adds her own spin to it, and it feels very refreshing and it flows very, very well. It complements 28 years later so beautifully. And what I really appreciate with this movie, amongst many things, is that it's so brutal and it's so disturbing, but that's complimentary. It's also very heartfelt deep down, and it tackles loneliness and isolation and all these different themes that were explored in the last film, but then it takes them to new heights. And I was really surprised by Nia DaCosta's approach to all this. I was really impressed. And I think that this is a film, despite it only being 3 weeks into the new year, I could safely say that this is gonna be a film that a lot of people talk about throughout the entirety of the year. I mean, it's doing so well critically and amongst the film community. A lot of people are really taking a liking towards the Bone Temple. And if you liked 28 years later, I would be shocked if you walk out of this completely disappointed. I would be absolutely shocked. There's nobody that I've come across that liked the last one that didn't like this. Most people are equal or they like one over the other. So I'm a big fan. I'm a huge fan, and I'm very excited to delve more into it with you today. And I'm especially excited to spoiler alert talk a lot about Ray Fiennes in this film because
Of course.
the guy has given many incredible performances throughout the years. He was just nominated for an Oscar last year for Conclave, and honestly, this might be like a top 3 performance for him from me, and he also has a fantastic record collection. A lot of my favorite songs were played in this film, which I did not expect at all. So, yeah, let's just get right into the spoiler territory of The Bone Temple. If you have not seen the film, please do not listen to this part. If you want to go out and watch the movie, please do yourself a favor and go do that. If you want to spoil the film for yourself, well, can't say I didn't warn you. So enjoy our spoiler discussion of 28 years later, The Bone Temple. So where do we start with this? Like, where do we begin with our discussion on this?
Yeah, so we can give just like sort of a brief synopsis. As the film begins, there's sort of two parallel storylines going on. So sort of picks up essentially where we left off at the end of the last film, and just for a refresher, 28 years later from last year, sort of ended with an abrupt, Spike is out on his own, sort of decides to take some time before returning to his father on the island and everything. And then he meets this Jack O'Connell and his, gang, who are very, they're all dressed the same in these blonde wigs. It's sort of a very like jarring, tonal shift at the end of that movie. And so this essentially picks up from there. And he is with the cult, so the gang, whatever. They're essentially called the Jimmies. They are I did not know this af seeing the movie originally, the first 28 Years Later, that they're sort of styled after, Jimmy Savile, who is this
Mhm.
British, icon who, was sort of an entertainer, and then in the some at some point between when essentially the zombie apocalypse would have started and, our current day, he, had a bunch of scandals of, I believe, pedophilia and sexual assaults against minors and things like that. And so people were very concerned essentially that this gang that is styled this way is, indoctrinating this young boy who we got to know in the first film. So, we are dealing with that. It kicks off with Spike's sort of initiation into the group, where he has to fight a current member. We're introduced to Jack O'Connell's, you know, insane, really going for it performance as Sir Jimmy. They're all essentially called Jimmy, but he's the leader. Um, and his perform I next to Ray Fiennes, I think his performance is probably the standout to me. Even though as we'll get into, I didn't quite enjoy the Jimmy's aspect of it as much. But Jack O'Connell is really going for it. He's sinister, but he's sort of got that charm about him where he's you don't necessarily know if you're being threatened by him as he's smiling in your face. And so as Spike is initiated into this group, quite violently, as we kick it off with a lot of blood, as Spike just stabs a member, and then it sort of hits an artery. There's blood spraying everywhere. It's a odd sort of initiation. And then he's in the group, and so just wondering, yeah, I guess we can, that's sort of happening concurrent with the Dr. Kelson storyline. But I don't know if you want to just talk about how you're feeling about the Jimmies first.
Yeah, I will agree that the Jimmy storyline wasn't as engrossing as the stuff going on with Kelson. I think that that's a take that a lot of people have. Certainly, I was still engrossed by the Jimmy storyline because of how great Jack O'Connell was as this character. He kept me glued to this storyline, even though I will admit it was, I don't want to say less interesting because that makes it seem like it's a negative. I was more compelled by the stuff going on with Kelson, which I do think ultimately was the heart of the movie. I think that that was the most compelling storyline in this film, certainly. And I liked what they set up with him in the previous one. And everything that happened with him in this movie made me appreciate that segment way more than I already did in the previous film. So, yeah, with the whole Jimmy storyline, it's really interesting because yeah, like you said, are we supposed to be terrified by this guy or are we supposed to like him because Jack O'Connell brings this very charm and suave to the character despite him doing these very heinous things. And not everybody in this group is appreciative of the things that he does. We have Jimmy Inc., who's a member of this group. She's played by Erin Kellyman, who I think is honestly an underrated element of the film. I think that a lot of people are not talking about her performance, which is really disappointing because yes, Ray Fiennes and Jack O'Connell arguably steal the entire movie, and then Alfie Williams is once again great. And I want to harken back to something you said last week when we talked about this movie. You said that he kind of reminded you a bit of a young Anton Yelkin, and I
Yeah.
definitely couldn't get that out of my head when I was watching this film. Like, there were so many moments where the camera would just be on his face, and he would react in certain ways, and I would see Anton Yelkin. Like, I would get Elton Yelkin's image in my head, and I was thinking to myself, man, if Elton Yelkin was the same age as Alfie Williams, I could so see him playing this character. Like, it kind of reminded me a bit of like that, and then partially like what, and this guy has only done one project so far, but like Owen Cooper, what he did in adolescence, like I just
Hmm.
saw a bit of that in this performance and everything. But yeah, the storyline with the Jimmies was, I mean, it definitely started off pretty dark with him stabbing that guy in his groin and then him bleeding out, and like the camera just stays on that shot for
Yeah.
like a long period of time, and you're like, oh, Nia DaCosta isn't shying away from the violence that Danny Boyle had in the previous film. And I mean, when I say that the violence was really like amped up in this, it was really amped up in this. And even during the moments that are considered quieter and more low key compared to other moments where like it's in your face and it's very out there and very wacky and wild. Even these moments are very hard to stomach, certainly. And that sequence was
Yeah.
definitely one that, and this was only in the first like 10 minutes of the movie. And I'm just like, oh, we're really starting out with something hectic and crazy. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think that the whole storyline with the Jimmies was, I was still compelled by it because I liked how not all of them were all for what Sir Jimmy's motives were. That's why I really liked the character of Jimmy Inc. because even though she recognized that what he was doing was wrong, she somewhat felt at home with this community, even though she hated being there deep down.
Yeah, and I think, we can get into it as we go over, more details of the movie, but I think my number one sort of criticism of the movie overall is that I just felt like Spike was a little bit sidelined. And, as you said, I loved his arc in the first movie. I mean, he goes on such a journey. Like it's definitely a coming of age movie where he's disillusioned with his father. He steps up to protect his mother. He has this, these revelations with Dr. Kelson, and then has to say goodbye to his mother. Like there are all these, really heavy things. And now going into this one, I was like, okay, well, we've really established Spike. Like how does he, fall in with this group of people who are, seem pretty clearly to be some sort of, psychopathic cult sort of situation. So I don't know, I thought we were going to get more of an examination of Spike, and maybe he was going to be drawn to them in some way, but he's really not. I mean, he's essentially just there against his will for
Yeah.
pretty much the movie, and it just felt like he was being, batted around by the story. I didn't feel like he had any agency, any character development. And for the other Jimmys, like yes, Jimmy Inc. is by Aaron played by Aaron Kellyman. Definitely has the most, going on. She's more sympathetic to Spike. She will eventually help him later on in the movie. But even that, it was I could have used a little more clarity in terms of, if why don't well, and I understand the dynamics of, a cult or an abusive situation where you're being mistreated, you're being forced to do things against your will, but you sort of are compelled to stay or afraid to leave. Like I think that's definitely, worth exploring, but I don't think that it was mined for everything that it could have been. I don't think it was clear enough that, are they are the different, philosophies here being explored fully? Do they, are they fully in on Jimmy and his belief? And just so we can clarify, he's sort of, as we revealed later, he sort of is saying that he's the devil is speaking through him, saying that they need to, find other roam the countryside and find other humans and give them charity, as he refers to it, which is essentially torturing them. And it's sort of your typical like sociopathic kind of thing. And yeah, I just felt like we could have there could have been more there in terms of how does the group actually, respond to this? And I mean, I don't need like a flashback to see how they all got together or anything. Like,
Yeah.
you can fill in those gaps, but like as we can get to, they find a family in a farmhouse, and essentially, invite themselves in, are being, pretty sinister. And then eventually it gets to them, capturing and torturing this family.
Pretty
Um,
terrifying sequence
pretty
of
yeah, it's
events. Like
it's
really
very harrowing, yeah,
terrifying.
definitely. And like throughout that, Sir Jimmy kind of starts monologuing at them, and I'm like, I really like locked in that. I was like, okay, we're gonna like sort of get the philosophy going on behind, him as a character and like this group. And it was essentially just the devil is speaking through me, and so I'm gonna go around and do terrible things. And as I said, Jack O'Connell sells the hell out of that. Like he is giving such a cool, like quirky performance. So it's not like I was crossing my arms and being like, well, what the hell? Like I was still terrified and intrigued to watch what was going to happen. But I just didn't think there was a lot of there. And again, I just wish Spike had a little more agency in the movie.
Yeah, that's a totally understandable criticism because, having rewatched 28 years later, just a couple of hours before I went to go watch this movie, I was so compelled by Spike's arc, and I understand that like you can make the argument that the first movie was his story and this one was more so like Kelson's story and everything. Like
Yeah.
28 years later was kind of building up Kelson's story to then make that prevalent in this film. But I totally understand, like, as someone who was also really engrossed by Spike's arc, I would have liked a bit more. But then you could also make the case that if he was more of a focus in this one, then maybe it could have been a case of like, oh, we're kind of retreading a little bit of what we did in the previous film, even though now he's with a different group of people as opposed to the previous film where he was with his parents and now he's with this cult and everything. So I totally get that argument, but I think we could both agree that everything with Kelson was pretty wonderful in this film.
Yes.
Like I mean, first of all, just to address this, as I said in my opening thoughts, Ray Fiennes is an actor that I think is always good. He's great in everything that I've seen him in. I still think that Schindler's List is his magnum opus in terms of performances. Why he didn't win an Oscar for that is beyond me. It's absolutely absurd that he lost the Oscar for that. And then, of course, like my introduction to him when I was a kid was when he played Voldemort. And he was so perfect in that role. And then, obviously, in the years since, and expanding my film knowledge and my film lore and everything, and seeing him in all these other films and everything, he's so magnificent in this and such a layered performance, very beautiful performance, moving, heartfelt, hilarious, and absolutely bonkers. And we'll talk about that scene in a little bit. We're going to build up to that because there's so much to say about that particular moment. But I think everything that was handled with his storyline in this was so great. And I particularly loved, upon many things, I love this relationship that he develops, this friendship that he develops with Samson, who's one of the infected. And I really loved what they did with this character too. I like that we got certain sequences from his perspective where it was just the grunting. Like there's that sequence where he chases down someone and he's literally eaten the brain of a human, which is again so disturbing to watch and so harrowing. But I loved his little arc too, and I loved the friendship that they develop and everything because Kelson is all by himself in this titular bone temple with the greatest record collection I have ever seen, to the point where I will say this right now. I mean, I didn't look up anything about the movie going in. I mean, I literally knew little to nothing. I knew the basics and that was about it. So when my favorite Radiohead song from my favorite Radiohead album, which I have right here, I have to show this to the audience. Kid A is my favorite album by Radiohead. I love it so much. And everything in its right place. It's so overused in movies. Like that's like the song by Radiohead that's used in every single piece of media ever made, but I loved its inclusion in this film so much. And then, I'm like, oh, Kelson, he likes Duran Duran. He likes Iron Maiden. He likes
He's a
all.
physical media king.
He's a physical media kid, but then also Ray Fiennes. He's a theater kid. The energy that he brought to this was absolutely insane. I saw a letterbox review from someone where they're like, Ray Fiennes, we're gonna get you that Tony. Then someone in the comments was like, actually, you mean Oscar? And clearly they didn't get the gag.
Yeah.
They didn't get the bit at all. But no, I thought everything with Kelson here was really, really great, and I loved how they expanded upon his character. And I this is gonna be a crazy thing for me to say. Ray Fiennes bald and buff and bloodied up, honestly, kind of smash.
Would.
I would not
Absolutely
say
would.
no.
Yeah, totally agree with all of that, especially last part. But yeah, this sort of thing is where like the 28 series like really shines. Like when it gets to be, this is what feels the most unique. This is what feels like, when you have a character like that who is so like sort of contemplative and intellectual, and is sort of given purpose and finds meaning in maintaining this bone temple, which as explained in the first one is, sort of this memorial to the dead. It's, it seems like this super intimidating, frightening thing, or like he's insane. But it's just his way of, sort of celebrating the life that happened here on Earth. And, I think, as we can get into later when they eventually meet face to face, I think that Kelson and Sir Jimmy sort of represent this sort of like theological versus, humanist point of view. That's sort of at war here. But that's just exemplified through the way that he sees Samson, and rather than the instinct being just to kill him to hide from him, he's sort of he has some medical expertise as a doctor, and so he's able to develop darts that can sort of subsume him and calm him down. And so the way that he doesn't just see that person as uninfected and a zombie, and therefore they're you know better off dead. Like there's this compassion in him that wants to see if there's anything there to rescue or to just connect with. I think throughout a lot of the movie, I don't think he's expecting to find a cure for the rage virus. I think that he's essentially just seeing another, living being, and seeing if they can, as he says, if he can just come to him and find a little bit of peace, and they can sit there and look at the moon together, then that's connection happening
Yep.
in and of itself. And so that's, again, that's he's just such a cool character. He's so, like you said, he's so funny. He's so offbeat. He's, intense when he needs to be. But he's just so empathetic and
Hmm.
brings such a like humanity to a film like this that, as
Yeah.
we've said, is really dark and gruesome at times. So yeah, everything about Dr. Kelson totally
It
worked for me.
it was just such a tender performance at the
Hmm.
same time, and it reminded me so much of why I do think Ray Fiennes is one of our best working actors, because he's a guy that could literally do it all.
Yeah.
And he's done it all too. And, like he's played heroes, he's played villains, he's been in these big budget franchise. Obviously, Harry Potter, he's been in the James Bond series. He's done his fair share of super small indies that don't get as much fanfare. He's also directed films too. He's done like practically everything. And now I want him to do a musical. I want him to be
Absolutely.
in something where he lets his freak flag fly. Like I want him to go crazy like he did in this movie. And yeah, that line that you brought up about the moon, that really got to me. I'm like sitting in my seat, and I started quivering a little bit. I was just
Hmm.
like, oh no, this movie is going to make me so emotional. Like, what the hell? Like 5 seconds ago, we were just seeing someone's brain being
Yeah.
eaten, and now I'm on the verge of tears. It's crazy. It's so amazing. He's really unbelievable in this, and everything they do with this character is great. Can we talk about the scene now, please?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, and just to cover that, as he's sort of treating Samson as he's coming to
Hmm.
him, he's Kelson is sort of hypothesizing that the rage virus is, what is making them attack essentially, and
Yeah.
he has this sort of theory that it might just be a form of psychosis,
Uh
and that
huh.
essentially if you can treat that. And I thought something that was really interesting. I think there's a very quick moment as Samson is attacking before he's treated and everything, as he's attacking. I think maybe it's the man whose brains he's eating. We sort of get a very quick flash of what he's seeing, and you see the person look like an infected person,
Yeah.
look like they are, attacking him, that they're full of the rage virus and everything like that. And so that was like just a very interesting sort of approach to,
Yeah.
like I said, like a typical
Mhm.
sort of zombie thing where it's just they're infected, that's it, they're
Yeah.
done. So it's interesting to just think of this as a sickness or a disease that can be treated medically and therapeutically, and all these ways. I just thought, that's just another cool element that Dr. Kelson brings to it.
Yeah, and also speaking of Sansa, before we delve into like the scene of the movie,
Yeah.
when he's on the train, and then we get that like quick flashback of like normalcy, and then it
Mhm.
he's sitting in the seat, then it just cuts to someone saying ticket please, and then it cuts back to him, and then it cuts back to the ticket person, and she looks like she's one of the infected. And that was a very like I mean that was a very short sequence and everything, but it was one that really stuck with me. And then it cuts back to him saying I don't have a ticket, and throughout most of the movie like he's unable to verbally communicate, and then in
Yeah.
that moment he is. And it was just such a somber sequence that I really, really loved, and I think that, like, when you go into a movie like this, of course, the very visceral, horrifying sequences are great to see, but it's the more intimate, grounded moments that I think make this movie, as well as the previous one, work so strongly for me. Like, I love going into a film that's expected to be one thing, and then it ends up giving you a lot more. At least for me, that was the case for me, and I
Mhm.
think that, having that in this movie, like, further expanded on, was really smart on Nia DaCosta's part. And it also just shows that, you could say what you want about Alex Garland, but when he writes a really good script, it's like really excellent. And I kind of wish that he would stick to just writing personally. I
Mhm.
like some of his directing outings, but I think he's a better writer than he is a director. And I mean, that's a
Yeah.
different discussion for another time. But yeah, I just,
Yeah, yeah, we
I
didn't we didn't get into our history with Alex Garland. I have such mixed feelings with his output. There are things
yeah.
I absolutely love, there are things I hate, and everything in between.
Yeah, like, he's a very mixed bag for so many people, especially as a director. But when it comes to just his writing, for the most part, it's a win. For the most part, I think it's a win. He's written many great screenplays. This is not my favorite thing that he's ever written, but I think the work that he generally does with Danny Boyle is among his best.
Mhm.
But yeah, I had to bring up that sequence with Samsung. All right, we'll
Yeah.
probably spend the next hour talking about how great this particular scene is. So, Veronica, do you want to set the stage for the scene of the movie?
Sure. So I will set the stage, and I know what scene you're talking about, but the scene for me was actually what sort of led up to it,
Mm-hmm.
and the so essentially, Erin Kellyman's character sees Ray Fiennes, and she sees him interacting with Samson, and so she and it's sort of unclear. I'm curious to your opinion on this. If she fully buys into Sir Jimmy's assertions that he's speaking to the devil, but she essentially tells him, I've seen this man in a bone temple, speaking with infected. His skin is all red, and so she's like, he's must be the devil. They refer to him as Old Nick, and so she sort of presents this to Sir Jimmy, and they're all going to go, check it out and meet with him. So Sir Jimmy and walks up to Dr. Kelson, and they have a conversation, and this to me was the scene of the movie, and it's just 2 people talking. It's a little bit tense, but it's also sort of once they interact a little bit, there is sort of a relaxed feel to it. You sort of get the sense that Kelson is diagnosing him, like, very subtly. He's asking him these, pointed questions about what are the voices that you're hearing, and sort of analyzing him psychologically in much the same way he did with Samson. He's trying to understand what his perspective is. And Jimmy is sort of experiencing for the first time in a while someone who's regarding him with curiosity rather than fear. His cult and the people that they torture, they all are just afraid of him. And this is the first time in a while, I'm sure, that someone is just like speaking to him. Um, and Jimmy is sort of conveying maybe that he's a little bit full of shit. Like, I think he's, getting across to Kelson that, like, I know you're not the devil. I know that I'm not the devil. I'm not speaking to the devil, but, like, I'm gonna need you to, like, keep up this facade for me or else. And so he sort of is enlisting him to convince the rest of his group that Ray finds is the devil, that Kelson is the devil, and he's gonna need him to up his game. So then there's a meeting that is arranged to happen, and there's quite a sequence that is involved here. And I'll let you take the reins on describing the scene.
I literally, when I saw the poster, and first of all, I had no idea who it was in the poster with, like, their arms out and then the flames were surrounding
Hmm.
them and everything. I had no idea who that was. I did not realize that that was Ray Fiennes. I had no idea that that was him in that poster and everything. And again, because I didn't watch any trailers for this movie, like, I literally saw no piece of footage from this movie. I had seen images and that was it. Like,
Hmm.
I pretty much was cold with this movie except for what it was about and all that stuff. So when this sequence happens and he just emerges in, like, this makeup and, like, all these, like, looks and everything, then this flame surrounds him and then he's lip syncing, Iron Man's The Number of the Beast, and it's such a WTF moment. Like, literally, I'm sitting in the theater, and mind you, like, my showing was pretty packed. I was shocked by how many people were at my screening of this movie. And the audience was just eating this up, as was I. I'm just sitting in my seat, just my jaw was on the floor. I was just like, I did not expect something like this to happen in this movie. And I was just particularly impressed with the energy, the bombastically out there wacko energy that Ray Fiennes brought to this particular sequence. Honestly, like, I know that we're only in January and there are hundreds and hundreds of movies left to come out this year. I would be shocked if this does not stay on the list of my favorite 2026 scenes. Like, I would be shocked because honestly, there were many great sequences in the film, and I like the sequence that you brought up that takes place before this particular sequence. But this is like the scene of the movie for me because it's so insane. Like, you have no idea what's happening and why this is all happening. But then the build up to it of how it's like at 100, and then it just calms down, it simmers down. And I really, really, really adore when Kelson discovers that Spike is a part of this group and has the realization that he's there. Now, you set up the whole point of how Kelson makes Jimmy Skane believe that he is the devil and he's going to be possessing everybody and
And
telling
it's convincing.
them. And it's very convincing. Yes, a lot of people are very convinced by this. And when he realizes that Spike is in this group, he says to the gang that they have to crucify Jimmy in a bid to save somebody, and that someone is Spike. And everything that just unfolds as this is progressing is truly insane. And there's so much happening around the scene too. Like, it's nighttime, there's all this fire, and then of course you're in the
Yeah.
bone temple. So like the visual imagery is really impressive. I think that one thing that I forgot to bring up is how beautiful the imagery in this film is. There's a lot of
Mhm.
really wonderful shots and compositions in this film, especially with like time lapse of like the sky and everything. Like,
Yep.
there are so many great wide shots of the bone temple where you see everything about it, and then even the close-ups that are confined in the bone temple. You feel claustrophobia when you're there, but then also when you get the shots that of the land that's surrounded it's also kind of peaceful, especially in the sequences where there's nothing happening. Like, it's just, Kelson just sitting there watching the sky, doing nothing. Like, there's something very cathartic about sequences like this stuff, and I find that to be a very great element of this entire film. But yeah,
Yeah,
this
and
entire
it's
sequence is just insane. I don't
yeah.
even know what else to say.
It is, and that's juxtaposed so nicely that, yeah, there are scenes of, Kelson just doing his work, doing his, maintenance of the Bone
It's
Temple,
showing
listening
the
to his
minutia
music.
of it all.
Yeah, there's so much of that, but then, you would think that, oh, he's just so, in his own world that this would, like the entrance of the Jimmies would, like, shake him or disrupt it, but he's, like, totally calm, cool, and collected and, like, knows exactly, after the musical sequence, he, um offers these words of advice to Jimmy, or these commandments or whatever he calls them, and he like just knows exactly how to like appeal to Jimmy's ego. He knows what he wants to hear, essentially playing the role of the devil and hyping him up as like the leader. So he just like he totally like reads this guy and knows exactly how to give him what he wants and let him go away. But then yeah, the Spike reveal just derails it. He needs to protect him, and then Jimmy Ink comes into play here too, because I think that once she's given just a little bit of doubt, we've seen her have doubt sort of throughout the movie, and she's like we said, she's more sympathetic to Spike, and seems the one who is most likely to revolt, and just given the go ahead of the devil saying go ahead and crucify Sir Jimmy, that's sort of enough for her to like deprogram essentially, and say, yeah, I feel more strongly about protecting this boy than I do about protecting this cult that we've joined. And she essentially dispatches the two other members who are left, and then we see Sir Jimmy hanging upside down on a satanic crucifix, and that's another striking image. Again, Jack O'Connell is giving a really unhinged performance, and then he sees Samson coming towards him. He's entering the Bone Temple, um, and he's sort of hallucinating. And also, Dr. Kelson like sort of blows some drugs in their face. I don't know, think that we know exactly what that is. That might be helping along some of the hallucination, but I think it's a
Mhm.
sort of parallel that as Samson comes in, he's hallucinating, seeing him sort of as a devil figure with horns and everything, and that sort of is parallel to where his hallucinations are sort of like confirming his preconceived notions of like the devil is coming to get me in the same way that Samson infected with the rage virus is seeing what his brain is tricking him into seeing. So I think there's a lot of they're sort of act as foils for each other. And so so during the initial conflict, um, Jimmy gets a knife stab into Dr. Kelson, and so he is you know, passing away as he says goodbye to Spike, and Spike and Jimmy Inc. run off. But how did you feel about Samson coming back and witnessing Kelson's final moments?
I thought it was a really beautiful culmination of his story in this film, and I think that even though this movie was only an hour and 50 minutes, I didn't really realize that until the movie was over. I was like, "Oh, that's it. It's over." Like
It
that
felt
was that
short,
was a
yeah.
very quick
Hmm.
quick watch and everything. And I think that I thought it was kind of poetic to a degree that Samson like just carried away Kelson's body, and his final words were "memento mori," which I believe translates to "remember that you have to die."
Remember we die, I think,
Yeah,
yeah.
something like that. It's Latin. I am not knowledgeable with the Latin language, so I apologize to those who are. But I just thought it was a very beautiful moment, and again, it was very quiet and everything. And then Sir Jimmy is left alone, and then he's killed by the infected, and that was awesome. And I really loved the final exchange with Spike and um Jimmy Inc. as they run off and everything. And I like when she's like, "Oh, my name is Kelly," and then she just tosses away her wig, and then they just
Hmm.
run off into the wilderness. And I think that that is a beautiful way of wrapping up this film until
Oh wait, I was
we
just gonna say,
get.
and the image of Kelson among the skulls, and he already
Oh,
has the like
yeah.
dark eye makeup on. He already sort of looks like a skull, and
E-
it's just this sort of beautiful like
The
him fading into
the
this
imagery
this
is
temple.
insane. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that Sean Bobbitt, who is a very wonderful cinematographer, I didn't realize that he shot this movie until the movie was over. I mean, he's worked with Steve McQueen on his films, like shooting like Shame and Hunger and 12 Years a Slave and Widows. And then, of course, he's worked with Nia DaCosta now a few times. He shot Hedda, which I thought was very like the cinematography of Hedda
I thought it
was
was
one of my
beautiful,
favorite
yeah.
elements of that film. And then he was also, I believe, he was Oscar nominated for Judas and the Black Messiah. Yes, he was Judas
Mm,
and the Black Messiah. Which where's that guy's next movie? Shaka Kane. Like, why
mhm,
hasn't he made a new film? Or maybe he is. I remember reading that he was doing something new, but that's besides the point. So
mhm.
yeah, everything with Kelson, like his arc coming to an end was really wonderful, and Samson being there was wonderful. And then Sir Jimmy being brutally murdered was wonderful.
Love
And
it.
then we get the final scene, the last
Yes.
scene of this movie, which I am so intrigued to hear your thoughts on it. So, should I set it up since you set up the last scene?
Go for it,
So,
yeah.
basically, I would assume this is just a couple of days later, like not too far off from, the previous scene and everything. We cut to this house in the middle of nowhere. We see this little girl just doing her homework, and then we hear a voice, and I'm like, I know that voice. Where do I know that voice from? Well, Jim, the protagonist of 28 Days Later, who of course was played by Killian Murphy, emerges, and it's him teaching his daughter, and it's a really wonderful little sequence and everything, a very nice, endearing sequence where they're just talking to one another, and he's homeschooling his kid, and I thought it was a really, really sweet and sincere moment. And I remember reading that Cillian Murphy was going to be in this, but there was no confirmation or denial that he was in this. Like there was all these reports saying that he was in it or he wasn't going to be in it, blah blah blah. So I was like, oh, maybe he's not in it after all, which is totally fine. But my audience erupted when they saw him, and I'm like, this is the kind of eruption for a cameo that I am totally fine with. Instead of your run of the mill, lazy Marvel cameo. I feel like I've been dogging on Marvel a lot in this episode, and I do apologize to the Marvel fans out there, but I think that this whole sequence, and then we end up hearing noises, and then we see Spike and Kelly fleeing from the infected, and then Jim and his daughter, whose name is Sam, they rush to help him, and then the movie ends. And I think that this was a perfect way to set up what is supposedly going to be the concluding chapter of this new 28 years trilogy and
Mhm.
everything. So yeah, I thought this last sequence was great. I thought it was really wonderful, and it gets me really excited to see what comes next. I think that this is one of those cases to where, oh, like a cliffhanger ending, and it's like, oh, it's just setting up the next chapter. But I liked the sequence. I thought it was great, and yeah, it was great seeing Killian Murphy again. And I know that he's supposed to be more of a lead in the next film. We don't know when the next one is coming. It has been greenlit, and Danny Boyle will be directing it, and Killian Murphy will be back, but we have no idea when it's coming. I would like to hope that within the next 2 years we're gonna get this next chapter, but I'm very excited to see where it goes. So, how did you feel about this final scene in the film?
Yeah, same as you. My audience erupted with cheers, which was very cool because like you said, it's not to dog on Marvel, but this is like a relatively small, movie from the early 2000s that we haven't seen. It's not like Jim has been like sort of foreshadowed figure or anything. Like it's just a character that people love and like we're excited to see again. And yeah, we see him interacting with. I'm assuming that's him and Selena's daughter from the first movie.
I would assume so.
I don't know even know her whereabouts or if she's still alive or anything. But yeah, so that was just cool to see and kind of get your bearings there. And yeah, he's homeschooling her. They're having a discussion about history. Sort of the discussion is sort of going about the reaction to World War I and the harsh punishment of Germany and the countries who lost that war and how that humiliation sort of led to World War II. And I think that's just very sort of in line with the overall themes of this movie of how that we have to sort of connect past differences or else essentially that bad things will lead to more bad things. Hurt people is kind of how you could sum it up. So I think that was just a little, fitting coda and everything. And then yeah, I'm so excited to see Killian Murphy back in this mode. I love that character. I like that they see Spike and Kelly coming, and it's I believe the daughter asks, should we help them? And he's like, yeah, of course we should. And so it's yeah, it definitely does, fit into the, oh, cliffhanger, let's tease the next thing, which I did not enjoy in the previous movie, because I just thought the entrance of the Jimmies was so like tonally
It was
different
very
from
jarring. It was
it
very
was super
jarring.
jarring, yeah, and it was like, we had just had this emotional moment of saying goodbye to Spike's mother, and like that was just such a
No, this
different
this
sort of,
definitely flowed very
yeah,
well, like from
this
the
set it up a
ending of
lot
the
better,
film
yeah.
until into this very final sequence. I thought it flowed very nicely and everything.
Yeah.
I agree. As someone who really loved 28 Years Later, I agree that the ending, although I do appreciate the ending a little bit more now that we got
Now
the
that we have the
full
full
story.
picture, yeah.
Yeah, but I still will agree with you that it was still slightly jarring and intentionally so, clearly. But this I thought was a nice segue. I thought
Yeah,
it flowed very well. I'm very excited for the next one whenever it comes
me
out.
too.
I can't wait. I It's gonna be interesting going from Danny Boyle to Nia DaCosta back to Danny Boyle. I mean, this is pretty much his bread and butter. I mean, he's the one who kicked off this entire series, and it was great that he got to come back for 28 years later. And, initially, when that movie ended, I was slightly bummed that he wasn't back for this, but then I saw this, and I really loved what Nia DaCosta brought to this. Again, she could have
Yeah.
just copied what Danny Boyle did. And she didn't. And I think that that's something that really needs to be commended about her direction in this, because most of the time when you see a sequel or a continuation to a story and the director changes, they just try to replicate what the previous director did without adding their own style. And yet she did her own thing and she did it incredible. Like, I was so
Yeah.
impressed.
Yeah, I didn't feel any disconnect, I didn't feel like, "Oh my god, this is in a totally different world," but I also didn't feel like it was repetitive or just, hitting
It
those
wasn't
same
a
beats.
replica of what we just
Yeah.
saw.
Yeah, and I believe it was so with Danny Boyle in the last one, he sort of it was famously he used that iPhone technique of, a bunch of iPhones like mounted to a camera that
Yeah.
he had on people running and things like that. And I believe this one was filmed a little more traditionally, and
Yes.
so you can, you get that you get that difference and everything. But like you said, there are cool time lapses, there are striking wide shots, and yeah, I definitely think that Nia DaCosta put her stamp on the series, but it still is totally cohesive with the other films.
Yeah. I also just found out this tidbit. The sequence where Kelson and Samson were dancing to Duran Duran's Rio was
Mhm.
not even part of the script. It was improvised during filming. I don't know
Really?
who chose to do that. I would assume Ray Fiennes decided to do that. But that's it's pretty cool.
Amazing.
It's pretty sick. So, is there
And
anything that you want to say before we give our rating for this film?
yeah, I think just sort of final thoughts. I think just the one thing that is sort of unanswered now moving forward is, Kelson was essentially onto a cure for the rage virus. But like, does that research die with him? Is that sort of the takeaway, or is
It's a
that
good
going to be
question.
a plot element of the next movie? It was also notable that he was, as he was talking to Samson, he was explaining that he was running out of the morphine that he was using to treat him.
Hmm.
But there was a shot of him in a sort of poppy field, and I'm, not a science person, but I believe that poppies can sort of be converted to like opiates and that sort of thing. So I'm just curious. I would be fine either way if like that's a plot point that's picked up in the next one, or if that's just like we live with that knowledge that, Kelson made these discoveries, but they die with him as, as does the rest of
Yeah.
his life and everything. So I'm sort of intrigued just how they pick that up. But
Yeah,
yeah.
that's interesting. Certainly, I didn't even think about that actually until you just brought it up. Yeah, I think if it's something that lingers into the next one, I would be intrigued to see how they handle that. But I also wouldn't be angry if this dies with him, and then we end up living in a world where there is no cure. But then I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, and, like, how does that manifest? Because now do we, just go back to thinking of the infected as, brainless zombies, or,
Hmm.
does another character sort of come
Right.
to that realization through
Yeah.
some other way? Yeah, that could be an interesting, unanswered question moving
No,
forward.
that's very interesting. That's a very interesting question to pose. Yeah, I don't know. I really have no
Mhm.
idea what they're gonna do with the next one.
Yeah, we'll have to
I would
see.
love to know like the vibe and the tone that's gonna be present in the next one. I'm very excited. And you know what? If the third film is on par with these two, this might go down as one of the better trilogies that we've gotten in
Mhm.
recent memory.
Yeah, for sure.
So now our final ratings. So we're gonna rate these films on a scale similar to Letterbox. Half stars are lowest and 5 stars are highest. So Veronica, what would you rate 28 years later, The Bone Temple?
I believe I'm giving this a 3.5 star right now. So, 7 out of 10. As I said, there are parts of this that I really loved that I think are super unique in the landscape of zombie movies. There's some things that didn't work as well for me, and wish could have just been executed a little bit better. I had rated 28 years later 4 stars, so this is just one half star lower. But definitely, I agree with what you say. If the third one comes out, that might bring the trilogy as a whole up for me, if I really like how everything sort of fits together. What about you?
I gave it a 4 star. It's the same rating that I gave 20 years later. I think right
Mhm.
now they're both neck and neck for me. I don't prefer one over the other. I do plan on watching this again down the road. I would really love to see where I land with this on a rewatch, but I was very, very satisfied with this. I thought it was a beautiful continuation of the story. I thought it complemented the predecessor really well. I loved the swings that it took. I loved the performances. I loved the imagery. I loved the stylistic choices that were handled. I was very impressed with what Nia DaCosta was able to bring to this story and make it her own, while also continuing what Danny Boyle built up. And yeah, I think that, essentially for the first really good movie of 2026 to come out only just a few weeks into the year, that's a really exciting thing. I was
Yeah.
questioning why this was dumped into January, but you know what? The studio had a lot of confidence in it. It was like, we could release this anytime we want, and they decided to release it in January, and it was good. And I'm
Yeah.
really happy about that. And seriously, Ray Fiennes, I that performance
Mhm.
really was lights out. I knew he had it in him to give a great performance because he's always great. But this was truly next level Ray Fiennes that I did not anticipate seeing in a 28 years later sequel. So I'm very impressed. So I overall really enjoyed this film, and I'm so excited to see where they go with the next chapter.
Absolutely. Yep, well, those are our thoughts on 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. Be sure to let us know what you think of the film.
And with that, that is a wrap on today's episode of Some Like It Real. Thank you all for listening. We really appreciate it. If you're interested in following along our journey, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterbox at Brian Suffield.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Vero Albarella and on Letterboxd at Alba_real_A.
And you can follow the show on all socials at Some Like It Real, as well as on YouTube at Some Like It Real. Be sure to subscribe and share it around, and tune in every Monday for a new episode of Some Like It Real on podcast platforms.
We'll see you next time.